Well, right now, I'd love you to welcome to your radio American folk artist Sam Amidon, who is in the country with me and ready to perform for you. Hello.
Hello.
I call you an American folk artist, and you are really, but these days you're based in London.
I have been there, last
Yeah.
couple of years.
Has that been an easy change for you?
Well, I'm very attached to New York City. You know, that was the only place where you could move through playing an Irish session in one corner of a pub and then be at some crazy psych rock concert by 2 a.m. and then be at the film forum watching a black and white film at 10 the next day. Like London has all those things, but they're all between 6 and 8 p.m. So it's
Right.
you can't do one at 10 and one. You have to spread them out over a few days. So that's the difference.
You're a very eager folk musician with very broad tastes, obviously.
Exactly.
Well, look, we'll come back and obviously have a much more in-depth chat, but let's take a little listen to some of your music. You have a new record called Bright Sunny South, and again, what you've become renowned for, which is looking at often very old folk songs and really taking them apart, putting them back together in your own inimitable style. Yeah.
Thank you.
But let's take a listen to one of those songs that appears on this new record. What would you like to play for us?
I'll do a song called Short Life. Originally it would have been called Short Life of Trouble, but I've sort of compressed the song, so the title's compressed too. A short life of trouble, a few more days of woe. A short life of trouble, a few more days, a few more days. You knew what you promised. It's been some time ago. Promised you would marry me, standing on the ballroom floor. Short life of trouble, few more days of woe. I see the train coming by the station now. I'd rather be dead or in my grave than to see my darling go. A short life of trouble, a few more days, a few more days. Short.
Great stuff. The sounds of Sam Amidon playing live for you here in the studio. And one of the songs that appears on his new record, Bright Sunny South, is the name of that album. And that one, Short Life. He's dropped the trouble, which is always a good idea, isn't it? Yeah, you, of course, grew up immersed in folk music, didn't you? Your parents were folk musicians. Was it always going to be the case for you?
They didn't push it. They didn't push it on us, but we were just so completely immersed in it that it was, that it was wherever you turned.
Yeah.
They were very smart. They didn't exclude other. They weren't like dogmatic about it. So they had. My dad gave me "Bitches Brew," the Miles Davis album when I was 13, and he loved Bartok, and we listened to Talking Heads. But so that stuff was all out there, and they were super open-minded about it.
See, that's a really interesting point, though, isn't it? Because folk has been, folk musicians or folk devotees in the past sometimes get accused of narrowing the framework for it.
Absolutely,
and
that sort of traditionalist attitude.
That's right. Yeah,
my parents' attitude was quite wonderful, which is different. Which is that on the one hand, as you say, they weren't traditionalists at all in the sense of they were open to all these things, but on the other hand, they really were drawn just in a positive way to the older stuff. So. The one funny thing, I think when people hear the idea of you growing up with folk music, they imagine a bunch of people with guitars like A Mighty Wind, and which is masterpiece by the way. Yeah, it's a great film. But actually, I never heard Bob Dylan until I was like 22. I didn't hear Joni Mitchell until the last 10 years of my, all that kind of stuff for us. That was great music, but it wasn't folk music. It was songwriters, you know, and that was something we were totally uninterested in. It was really much more about banjos, fiddles, group a cappella, sort of ancient choral traditions, folk dancing, all the kind of community weird elements of stuff, which was really, and children singing games, all that sort of strange fringy stuff of the old weird America, all those different corners of it.
So the songs that you choose, how do you go about that selection process and why? And how much of the history of a song do you know before you start working on it?
Well, I'm not much of I'm not like a, ethnomusicologist. I don't have like an encyclopedic knowledge of music. It's a pretty personal and idiosyncratic batch of, I sort of know what my parents were into and I stuff that I've been drawn to. So I don't have a broad, I don't know that many folk songs. I don't know that many.
Oh, really?
I really don't. I couldn't sing that many more than I've recorded. You know what I mean? Like, so it's more like I listen a lot and it's just very personal. It has to get stuck in your gut. And it's the most important thing is like, you just get drawn to a melody or a lyric that is, personal to you. Because once I take them and change them around, they're not really folk songs anymore because I've changed them so much. They're almost they're a hybrid,
Well, that's a really interesting point too, isn't it? Because you take a song, as I mentioned before, you have the tendency to really sort of pull them apart into their little distinct pieces and then slot them back together in a way that makes sense to you. But is there a rhyme or a reason to that process for you?
Well, there's not like a method, but there are things that, you can play with, like that one I just did, The Short Life of Trouble. Like one thing that's great about old time songs is they'll have these really happy melodies and super brutal lyrics. Like that one, that one would usually be like, a short life of trouble, few more days of woe, which is something I love about that music. There's like this insane disconnect between these incredibly brutal lyrics and this ridiculously sweet, dippy, sweet melody. So, in that case, I kind of, I took it to a place where the music was more in the atmosphere of the emotion. But it's, again, that's a pretty random process too, that what I do with them. Like often I'll write the music, like the guitar part will just be a first, and then there'll be a melody that might be sticking around in my head from a ballad I was listening to, and I'll realize that can fit over it.
The other aspect about your work is, and you can hear that on this new record too, is the importance of the tone of your instruments and the sound of what you're looking for. I take it you've got a real keen interest in what the sonic palette is for the sound of your songs.
I take that as a compliment because it's definitely true. Like I love, I grew up as an instrumentalist. I grew up playing the fiddle, and then more recently I've been learning the banjo and guitar, and I've always come to stuff as a player, less and less as a singer. I mean, I love to sing, but that's more unconscious. So yeah, for me, what's exciting is the sound, and what I love when I listen to music is just hearing a great instrumentalist, not somebody who's like some crazy shredder, but although I do love a good shred, but somebody who just has a deep connection sonically to their instrument, like Miles Davis, or those people who they start playing and it's like you could be anywhere, who that is, and so I try to give that attention to the albums, it's a sonic experience.
Yeah, Sam Amidon is with me, the American folk artist, now based in the UK, and just having a chat about his new record. It's called Bright Sunny South. Of course, most of the songs that you do a few relatively contemporary songs, but most of the songs that you do are hundreds of years old on many of the occasions. The big question is, are there equivalent folk songs which are being made today? Of course, a lot of those songs were born out of a need to express or to alleviate pain and the problems that were being faced by people on a day-to-day basis, and this was a chance to alleviate that. Whereas we have our own problems in the modern
Yes.
age. You know, it might be the pace of life or the disconnect from the family or the modern age. But are people able to nail those modern day melodies in the same way? Do we look at the past with rose-coloured glasses and therefore look at the music from that time?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think that one thing that I think is nice about singing these songs, like for me, singing folk songs is not about the nostalgia for the era. The fact is that these songs do come from, as you say, a time when people were maybe a little bit more on a daily basis engaged with stuff that were a little bit more, sterile about, like death, or that's something that you would just, if you have 10 kids and 5 would survive past the age of 10 or what, just really intense stuff. And there is something meaningful for us, I think, about singing these songs that can kind of connect you to that daily, experience with the, intensity of life. And in an era where we kind of keep that stuff a little bit quarantined, to me, a folk song is just anything that taps into that ancient quality, but it can come from anywhere.
Well, you have played a song for us on your guitar, but you do have a slightly weather-beaten banjo sitting next to you as well. Is there a story behind this instrument?
Well, it's getting it. There's this play. It's claw. I play clawhammer style banjo, which is the sort of original when the banjo came from Africa. That was this sort of style, and it involves kind of like thwacking your thumb against the top, and as you can see, the skin is like wearing off here. That only just happened yesterday.
That's the skin on the banjo, by the way. Not the skin on your thumb.
No, my thumb skin's doing all right at the moment. The head of the banjo, the sheepskin or whatever it is sort of wearing off. This was given to me as my high school graduation present from my folks.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Well, let's take a listen to it. What would you like to play for us?
This is As I Roved Out. It's a song about how you might take a walk out on a cold winter's night, bring a bottle of wine, and maybe you're looking for some inspiration, but when the sun goes down and those trees start to take the shapes of people you remembered or forgotten about, it's a form of inspiration you weren't necessarily intending.
Just get
That's too fast. Should I do the intro again?
No, the intro's perfect.
Okay,
leave
just space.
Okay, you ready, Charlie? Let's hit it.
As I roved out on a cold winter's night, drinking of sweet wine, I spied that girl, sweet little girl, who broke this heart of mine. What is it, Mitchell? Her cheeks are like some red roses that blooms in the month of June. Her voice is like some instrument that's always on some tune. What is it, Benjo? I wish to the Lord that I'll never been born, or died when I was young. I never would have kissed your red ruby lips, or heard your lying tongue. What is it, Benjamin? Oh, the green, green grass trampled underfoot will rise and bloom again, but love, it is a killing thing. Did you ever feel such pain?
Oh, isn't that great? Sam Amidon playing live for you here in the studio on his graduation present, his banjo. And that song, As I Roved Out. Bright Sunny South is the name of the new record for Sam, and we thank you very much for coming in and playing for us today.
Thank you.
Cheers.
RN